water, earth, fire, air. Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony. Then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Only the Avatar, master of all four elements, could stop them. But when the world needed him most, he vanished. 100 years passed and my brother and I discovered the new Avatar, an airbender named Aang. And although his airbending skills are great, he has a lot to learn before he's ready to save anyone. But I believe Aang can save the world.
And now Avatar The Last Airbender Vlogs presents to you Sokka's Quote of the Day.
Four elements, and all.
Previously on Avatar.
I can't believe we finally made it to Ba Sing Se in one piece.
I just want our new place to look nice, in case someone brings home a lady friend.
I don't want to make a life here.
Here we are, your new home.
We need to talk to the king about the war.
Your request for an audience with the Earth King is being processed and should be put through in about a month.
If we're gonna be here for a month, we should spend our time looking for Appa.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Avatar Vlogs. This is episode 35, The Tales of Ba Sing Se, and this is probably the most unique episode in the entire series because it's the only one that's actually not told in a straightforward three-act structure. It's actually told in a series of vignettes where for maybe 2 to 5 minutes or so, it'll focus on one or two characters and the little adventure they had before moving on to the next one. Now, you could argue that a lot of episodes technically do that anyway with their structure, cutting to and from plots, but this one is unique because each one has a different set of writers, each one has a completely different plot, and it usually only focuses on one, and in one case, two characters. There's about 5 of them, I guess, so we'll just talk about them in their entirety very briefly. So the first one is the tale of Katara and Toph. This one, in many respects, is a little strange how they just kind of merge Katara and Toph's story into the idea of girl. Like, you take the two girl characters in this show, you put them together, and you have them do a girl thing. I mean, I know there was a time restriction. You can't really do a story about all the characters, but then again, given how one of these stories is dedicated to Momo, I feel you could have had a tale of Katara and a tale of Toph, not a tale of Katara and Toph. But either way, it's an okay story. It features the two of them deciding to have a girls' day out. They go to a spa. They have a nice time. Although there's one scene which I connect with very strongly, in which Toph is getting a pedicure, and she hates it so much she kicks the plier, the worker, through the wall. And I'm like, I had one pedicure my entire life, and I hated it so much. I felt if I could have, I would have as well. So good on Toph for doing what I couldn't do. And after they go to the spa, they're left very dolled up. They have some makeup done on them, and they come across a group of very preppy girls who kind of poke fun at Toph's appearance a little bit, which is kind of a nice little dive into Toph's character, that she's usually such a very strong, headstrong character, but turns out she's kind of a little sensitive about her appearances, mostly because she can't confirm or deny for herself. Like, she has no idea what she looks like or what everyone else looks like, but when Katara says, "I think you're very pretty," it kind of makes Toph a little happy, and the two of them have a bit of a nice moment.
And I know it doesn't matter, but you're really pretty.
I am?
Yeah, you are.
I'd return the compliment, but I have no idea what you look like. Thank you, Katara. Ow.
So the next one chronologically is the tale of Iroh, but we're actually going to save that one for later because there's something important we have to talk about with that one. So we're going to cut to the next one, which is the tale of Aang. Now, this one is probably my favorite because if you know me, you know I love talking about the animals in this world and their designs and their uniqueness. And, well, this one deals with an entire zoo, so I like zoos, so of course this is going to be the one I like. Aang goes to this little zoo in Ba Sing Se, and he finds it's very run down due to lack of public interest and lack of public funding. And the zookeeper has said he doesn't know what to do, and the animals are not very happy where they are, but he can't really afford to make things better. But Aang proposes they start a new zoo on an area just outside of the city wall in the agrarian zone where they can have a nice, better zoo for the animals. Things get a little chaotic when all the animals are loose at once, but Aang uses his little buffalo whistle to herd the animals outside the wall and make a new home for them. And a very simple story for sure, but again, it's an opportunity to see all sorts of animals, including a bobcat armadillo. I think this is the first time we've seen hog monkeys, though they've been mentioned before in other episodes. There's a giant mandrill buffalo creature, I guess you could call, a rabaroo, just all sorts of great animals. They all have great designs. I'm all for the animals. And it kind of figures that Aang would have a story that's just as simple as helping some animals out. I think that's very fitting for him. The episode ends with him realizing that his little whistle escapade has also got the domesticated pets of Ba Sing Se, so he kind of has his work cut out for him getting all the pets back home.
Fluffykins? What are you doing down there?
On second thought, you should probably stick to saving people.
The next one is the Tale of Sokka. This is probably the shortest, and I don't want to say the most pointless, but you know, it's not pointless. I was originally going to say this is the most pointless, and you probably could have cut it, but you know what? No, I'm not going to say that. It's Sokka. I'm going to take it. So Sokka's out for a walk when he comes across a gathering of women, and they're having a little poetry. They're having a poetry thing, and Sokka accidentally gets kicked by an ostrich horse into it, and he accidentally executes a perfect haiku, which, if you happen to not know what a haiku is, it's poetry where it's 3 lines of 5 syllables, 7 and 5 again. And so Sokka is, I am so sorry, something struck me in the rear, that's how I got here. And from that point on, him and the poetry instructor have a bit of a haiku off because she sees him as a very beneath her kind of person. And Sokka, not wanting to be outdone, fights back against this and executes haiku after haiku until he gets a little too drunk on his own style, goes 1 syllable too far, and is kicked out of the poetry reading. And that episode ends. We cut now to the... Do you want to cut now? I guess it's sort of a dive into Sokka's personality that, this guy who we think would not be interested in poetry actually very much loves poetry. But other than that, I don't have a lot to say about this one. It's very straightforward. It's by far and away the shortest of them all. So we'll move on.
Poetry.
Next is the Tale of Zuko. Zuko and Iroh are busy running their tea shop in Ba Sing Se when Zuko believes that a young lady who has been coming into the shop every day now is a spy who's onto them as firebenders. But Iroh, being a wise old man, correctly deduces that she actually has a crush on Zuko. And just as he says this, the young lady named Jin asks Zuko out on a date. And they go and they have a pleasant, if not extremely awkward date, with the two still kind of having some decent chemistry. And she ends up taking him to this fountain in the middle of the city, that's not lit at the moment. But Zuko decides to kind of be nice, tells her to close her eyes, and he uses his bending to light the lanterns around the fire. And this is a moment that's kind of gotten a bit of, I don't want to say controversy, but a lot of people have always asked, like, okay, Jin is so dumb. How did she not know he was firebender after that? She knew, guys. She knew. She knew. She just didn't care. I feel it's kind of worth repeating sometimes, but the most important women in your life, they're smarter than you think they are. And if you think you can keep secrets from them, you can't. So I'm going to go with Jin knew 100% he was a firebender. She just didn't care. She just liked him too much. And the episode their date ends with Jin giving Zuko a little kiss, which he returns, but he can't fully go through with it because he still kind of has feelings for May, kind of not. It's a little complicated, as Zuko puts it, and he leaves Jen dejected, goes home, and Iroh asks, how's your date? To which Zuko kind of says, it was nice, and the episode ends there. So I'll just say this was the one and only appearance of Jin, voiced by, I'm going to probably have to come back and re-edit this because I actually didn't bother to research who she was. Actually, I won't. I might put up a picture, but Jin, this was her one and only appearance in the entire show, which a lot of fans were kind of disappointed by, because it's not that she had like a tremendously great character, but she's probably the first woman in Zuko's life who more or less unconditionally, cared for him. And she's really cute. She's really energetic to be around him. But she never appeared again. She appeared, I believe, once in one of the graphic novels, but very briefly. But that was kind of in service to Mai and Zuko's relationship, which I'm not really a fan of all the time. So, yeah, there's that. That's the end of that episode.
How was your night, Prince Zuko?
It was nice.
And the final episode proper in this is The Tale of Momo, which, as a lot of you know, I'm not really a Momo fan, but this one actually does make it very interesting. Momo is busy missing his friend Appa to the point where he's having those sepia-toned dreams of feeding his best friend Appa peaches, which is very cute and very sad. When he's awoken, he finds a tuft of Appa's fur, which he ties around his wrist to kind of hold on to. And he's going around the city trying to find any traces of Appa. While he's out, he comes across a trio of wild cats, and the three of them give him chase throughout the city before they're captured by animal control, who wants to sell them to a butcher of sorts. Momo's able to make his way out of his cage, and he lets the wildcats go. And kind of as a return, they take the fur and they lead him to the last place they saw something like Appa. Momo doesn't see him there, but instead falls asleep in his footprint. And that's where the episode ends proper, but we're going to backtrack a bit to the second story, The Tale of Iroh. Now, Iroh is out walking around the streets of Ba Sing Se, picking up supplies for an important event he has to go to. He's going on a very important picnic, and along the way, he offers just little tiny bits of help and assistance to all those he comes across. To a shopkeeper, he pushes a plant back in the shadow that likes partial shade, and it blooms beautifully. He helps stop a kid from crying by playing a little song. He teaches some kids who are playing soccer and that break a window that sometimes you have to own up to your responsibilities. But when the house owner turns out to be a raging lunatic, he says, "Not this time, run!" He he turns a man's life around from going down the route of being a criminal, before finally coming to a clearing just out of the streets, where it turns out that's where his son is buried, and he's throwing him just a little birthday celebration. And the episode ends with Iroh singing a song before ending properly. Now, when talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender, there's a certain inevitability to all things about it. There's just some points that you have to talk about, whether or not you actually truly want to. And this is probably the biggest one in the show for me and for a lot of people. So, Uncle Iroh was initially voiced by a man simply credited as Mako. Now, Mako was an actor who did a lot of projects before this. He was even Academy Award nominated in his movie The Sand Pebbles. Now, this is by far and away his most famous and beloved work with people. His role as Iroh in the first two seasons of Avatar. But he's also, of course, done voice acting and appearances and other stuff. His best known works after this are probably as Aku the Wizard in Samurai Jack and Akiro the Wizard in Conan the Barbarian. Iroh was voiced by Mako for the first two seasons of this series, but tragically, on Friday, July 21st, 2006, Mako passed away at the age of 72 after a long battle with esophageal cancer. And while he got all the lines recorded for his appearances in the first two seasons, now Mako was known and beloved by the entire cast, and not his final contribution, but his probably most significant contribution that he ever did was a song called Leaves from the Vine. This is a little lullaby written for the show for Iroh to sing in memory of his fallen son. And it was sung and recorded by Mako kind of on his last legs. It It's a beautiful song to begin with, a very simple melody, simple lyrics, but it's punched up by Mako's excellent performance, which itself was punched up by Mako not only reminiscing about his own son, but also with the sense inside that he knew he wasn't long for the world and that he was not going to be around for too much longer. And from that point, his section ends with in honor of Mako. I'm sorry, I keep getting his name mixed up. And that's where I'll end this episode. But before I do, we'll talk about it more in detail. But for the third season, Mako was replaced by Greg Baldwin, who I also had the privilege of meeting at one point, who is an excellent man. And he is probably in a similar vein to when Frank Welker replaced, Lorenzo Music as Garfield. He is probably the only person alive who can replicate the voice of this beloved man and character. And from that point on, he did a great job not only as Iroh, but he has subsequently done voiceovers for any character that Mako played originally, including Aku in the 5th season of Samurai Jack. And so connected was Leaves from the Vine to Mako that Greg Baldwin has says, and I'm paraphrasing, mind you, that song was Mako's. It was written for him. It was his performance that brought it to life. And to this date, it is the only fan request I will always turn down. And there are better dedications and memoriams that one can give to Mako and his impact on your childhood and on film as an actor, as a person. So I'm just doing my part now because it is one of the inevitabilities when talking about this show, the passing of the great Mako. And, well, Greg Baldwin was a great replacement. There, in many respects, there was no equal to Mako. He had a very unique voice that, while done well and given its own spin with other people, it was truly one in his own. So sometimes it's deemed silly to feel sad or to give past treatment like this to actors who we've never met in our life and we will likely never would have met in our lives. But at the same time, I think it is important to acknowledge the feelings that we felt when experiencing their performances, or if we saw them in interviews, or even the chance by connecting their character to when we meet them in real life. Now, I will just say, I have met a lot of actors who have played a lot of beloved characters in my life, and some of them more than live up to expectations, some of them don't. But I do think it is always important to acknowledge the work and importance they gave to their job and the dedication to the writing and to the characters, and how even though sometimes we are burned by people who we once held to be heroes, we should not take that away from the feelings we felt in those moments while they were still here. It's like James Earl Jones. He was a great man outside of his work, but you also need to acknowledge the work and the impact he left on people while he was around to give his catalog to us. I don't think there's much more I can say about Mako. This is just my little bit to him. So I'll end this playing the scene in its entirety as we end here. So I just want to say again, thank you, Mako, for bringing Iroh to life. Thank you, Iroh, for being a voice and a mentor to a lot of us when we needed it. And with that said, until next time, onwards and upwards, my friends.
Happy birthday, my son. If only I could have helped you. Leaves from the vine, falling so slow, like fragile, tiny shells drifting in the foam. Little soldier boy, come marching home. Brave soldier boy comes marching home.